In December 2022, Philadelphia police stood before a room full of cameras and announced that one of America's oldest, unidentified child murder victims finally had a name. For 65 years, he had been known simply as the boy in the box. Now investigators could finally call him Joseph Augustus Zarelli. It was an extraordinary breakthrough. Advances in DNA and genetic genealogy had solved a mystery that generations of detectives could not. But the announcement also came with an uncomfortable truth. For decades, people had asked, who was this little boy? Now they were asking something else. If investigators finally knew who he was, who killed him? To understand why that question still has no answer, we have to go back to a cold winter morning in 1957. On February 25th, 1957, a college student was driving along Susquehanna Road in Philadelphia's Fox Chase neighborhood. The road wound past a lightly wooded area where people often dumped unwanted furniture and household trash. An abandoned box wasn't unusual enough to deserve a second look. Still, one cardboard box near the edge of the woods caught his attention. He considered stopping, but he knew animal traps had been placed nearby and worried about trespassing, so he kept driving. Hours later, another man happened to pass the same spot. This time, someone decided to see what was inside. The box had originally held a bassinet. Its cardboard was damp from the winter weather, but still mostly intact. When investigators lifted the lid, they found the body of a small boy wrapped carefully in a plaid blanket. He appeared to be around 4 years old. At first glance, several things stood out. His body showed signs of severe abuse. There were bruises, old scars, and evidence of malnourishment. Yet, his hair had been freshly cut. His fingernails had been neatly trimmed. Someone had taken the time to do those ordinary things. That small detail only made the scene harder to understand. At the medical examiner's office, detectives began searching for anything that might tell them who the child was. There was no wallet, no note, no clothing, nothing that could point them toward a family. His fingerprints were taken. The photographs were carefully documented. The examination eventually confirmed that the boy had died from blunt force injuries. Exactly how everything unfolded remained unclear. But one conclusion was unavoidable. This was a homicide. Somebody had known this child, and somebody had left him inside that cardboard box. Police launched one of the largest identification efforts Philadelphia had ever seen. Thousands of flyers were printed. Newspapers across the country published his photograph. It was a face that was difficult to forget. A young boy with light-coloured hair. A quiet expression. Meanwhile, detectives checked missing children reports, hospitals, schools, churches, orphanages and foster homes. Every promising lead raised hope for a moment before quietly disappearing. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and still, nobody came looking for him. That silence gradually became one of the most disturbing parts of the investigation. Children disappear, then parents call police. Teachers notice an empty desk, neighbours ask questions, friends wonder where someone went. But this little boy seemed to have vanished without leaving a gap in anyone's daily life. Investigators began asking different questions. Had he ever attended school? Had he been kept isolated from other children? Had the people responsible for him intentionally hidden him from the world? Without knowing who he was, every possibility remained open. Detectives turned their attention to details that most people would have ignored. The cardboard bassinet box was traced through manufacturers and stores. Investigators learned where that particular style of box had been sold. Employees were interviewed. Purchase records were examined. It was slow, methodical work. In the end, the box narrowed the search only slightly. Thousands of families could have bought the same product. Before long, the trail simply faded away. As months passed, the case spread far beyond Philadelphia. Letters began arriving at police stations. People shared theories. Some believed they recognized the boy. Others insisted they knew his family. Even psychics contacted investigators, convinced they could solve the mystery. Every tip had to be considered, though most led nowhere. Even so, detectives kept opening every letter. Because, as you might know, every cold case survives on the possibility that the next lead might be different. Over the years, several theories captured public attention. One woman, often identified only as M, claimed decades later that her abusive mother had purchased the boy, subjected him to horrific abuse, and that his death had been accidental. Some parts of her account appeared consistent with known details of the investigation. However, many important claims could never be verified. Other theories pointed toward foster care, illegal adoption, or secret family arrangements. Each offered possible answers. None provided enough evidence to explain what had really happened. The case remained suspended between possibility and proof. Then the years became decades. Detectives retired, boxes of evidence moved from one office to another. New investigators inherited aging files, filled with fading photographs and handwritten notes. Many cold cases eventually reach a point where they become almost impossible to solve. Witnesses die, memories fade, physical evidence deteriorates. Yet this case never quite disappeared. Each new generation of detectives chose to take another look, not because success seemed likely, but because the boy deserved another chance. By the early 2000s, forensic science had changed dramatically. DNA testing had already solved cases that once seemed hopeless. Investigators wondered whether the same technology could finally help here. There was one obvious problem. The evidence was more than 40 years old. Time had taken its toll. Even so, scientists worked patiently to recover usable genetic material from the child's remains. Success was far from certain. But eventually, they recovered enough DNA to begin an entirely different kind of investigation. Instead of revisiting old crime scenes, investigators began exploring family trees. Genetic genealogy compares DNA with people who have voluntarily submitted samples to public databases. Sometimes, a distant cousin becomes the first thread. One relative leads to several. Several lead to dozens. Slowly, researchers built family branches. For the first time in 65 years, investigators believed they were getting close to learning his identity. The search eventually brought detectives to historical records, birth certificates, marriage records, family documents. Each discovery narrowed the possibilities a little further. Then one record fit. The unidentified boy had been born on January 13th, 1953. His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. After more than 6 decades, the child whose face had appeared on posters across America finally had an identity. The unknown victim was unknown, no longer. But that breakthrough immediately created another mystery. Investigators identified Joseph's biological parents. Both had died years earlier. Police also located living relatives. Officials emphasized that they were treating the family with respect and would not publicly discuss many personal details. Some records remained sealed, some questions remained private, and the homicide investigation was still active. Knowing Joseph's name did not automatically explain his life, or the circumstances of his death. Detectives then tried to reconstruct what little they could. Joseph had lived in Philadelphia. Beyond that, many details of his childhood remain uncertain. Exactly where he spent his final months, who cared for him, who last saw him alive, those answers have never been publicly established. The timeline still contains long stretches filled with silence. Somewhere inside those missing pieces lies the truth investigators continue searching for. Looking back, Joseph's identification changed how investigators viewed many earlier theories. Some became less convincing. Others remained possible but impossible to prove. That distinction matters. A compelling story is not the same as reliable evidence. Investigators have consistently emphasized that they continue following facts rather than speculation. Despite decades of public fascination, no single theory explains every known detail. The evidence simply doesn't allow it. Even so, one detail continues to stand out. Joseph's hair had been recently cut. His fingernails had been trimmed. Those are ordinary acts of care. They don't identify a killer. They don't explain a motive. But they remind us how complicated this case really is. Whoever was responsible for Joseph's death may also have been someone involved in his everyday life. Looking back now, the investigation almost feels like 2 separate stories. The first is about a child whose identity disappeared for 65 years. The second is about detectives who refused to let that disappearance become permanent. With every advance in forensic science, another door slowly opened. Without DNA technology, Joseph might still be known, only by a heartbreaking nickname. Instead, he regained the one thing every person deserves: his name. Today, the homicide investigation remains open. Police continue asking the public for information. Even a small memory, an old conversation, or a forgotten family photograph could become meaningful when viewed alongside everything investigators know today. That's the unusual thing about cold cases. Sometimes solving one mystery creates opportunities that never existed before. Joseph's identification did exactly that. It gave detectives somewhere new to begin. For more than half a century, America knew this child as the boy in the box. His photograph became one of the country's most recognizable, unsolved mysteries. Today we know his name: Joseph Augustus Zarelli. That discovery closed one chapter many people believed would never end. But the final chapter remains unwritten. Someone knows what happened to Joseph. Someone knows how a little boy disappeared from the lives of everyone around him, only to be found alone inside a cardboard box beside a quiet road. Today, Joseph's identity is no longer the mystery. His murder is.